Marcus "Tank" Rodriguez had seen some weird stuff during his 20 years as a xenobiologist, but nothing quite like what crawled out of the Kepler 442b specimen container that morning. The creature was black and white, about the size of a small dog, with claws that could probably open a tin can and an attitude that screamed, "I don't give a damn about your entire existence." "What the hell is that thing?" asked his research partner, Dr. James Chun, backing away as the animal casually destroyed a reinforced steel feeding bowl. "According to the manifest, it's called a honey badger," Marcus replied, consulting his datapad. "Earth designation, Malivera capensis. Says here it was being transported to the Rigel colony for behavioral studies. The honey badger, apparently named Brutus by whoever had the questionable judgment to capture it, looked up at Marcus with small, dark eyes that held absolutely zero fear and approximately infinite malice. Then it did something unexpected. It sat down and tilted its head, as if evaluating him. "I think it likes you," James said nervously. "Or it's deciding which part of me to eat first," Marcus muttered, but he knelt down anyway. Something about the creature's unwavering stare reminded him of the combat veterans he'd served with in the colonial Marines. Pure, undiluted confidence backed by the skills to justify it. That was 3 months ago. Now, as their research station on Proxima Centauri shook under the impact of plasma bolts, Marcus couldn't imagine facing what was coming without his four-legged partner in mayhem. "Contact lost with perimeter sensors 7 through 12, announced Arya, the station's AI. "Multiple hostile signatures approaching from the eastern ridge." Marcus grabbed his pulse rifle and looked down at Brutus, who was calmly grooming a paw as if alien death squads were just another Tuesday morning inconvenience. "You ready for this, buddy?" Brutus looked up, chittered something that sounded vaguely like agreement, and trotted toward the exit. Marcus had learned to interpret that particular sound as, "Let's go make something regret being born." The Zephyrians had been circling human colonies for weeks now, probing defenses, testing responses. They were apex predators from a high-gravity world where everything evolved to kill everything else. 7 feet tall, for arms, natural armor plating, and a pack-hunting instinct that had made them the nightmare of 3 separate star systems. They'd never met anything like Brutus. The first Zephyrian scout came over the ridge like death in exoskeleton armor, its 4 arms wielding plasma weapons that could melt through a meter of reinforced concrete. It moved with the fluid grace of something that had never encountered prey it couldn't kill. It spotted Marcus behind his makeshift barricade, let out a hunting shriek that would have made a lesser man soil himself, and charged with the confidence of something that sat comfortably at the top of its food chain. Brutus appeared from absolutely nowhere. 1 second the Zephyrian was in full predatory stride, and the next it was tumbling backward with 20 pounds of pure earth-bred attitude latched onto its face. The alien's shrieks changed from triumphant to confused to genuinely alarmed as Brutus demonstrated why honey badgers were legendary for taking on lions, hyenas, and venomous snakes without breaking stride. "Holy shit," Marcus breathed, watching the 7-foot killing machine flail helplessly while Brutus systematically dismantled its helmet with mechanical precision. The scout tried to shake off its attacker, firing plasma bolts wildly into the air. Brutus rode the bucking alien like a furry, psychotic bull rider, his claws finding purchase in gaps between armor plates. The Zephyrian's hunting cries became distinctly higher-pitched. Marcus snapped out of his amazement and added his own firepower to the mix, sending precise pulse rifle bursts into the scout's center mass. The alien staggered, then collapsed, twitching. Brutus hopped down from his defeated opponent, shook himself off, and looked expectantly at Marcus as if to say, "What's next?" That's when the real hunting party showed up. 8 more Zephyrians crested the ridge, moving in perfect formation. Their leader, distinguishable by elaborate scarring and additional armor, surveyed the scene with what Marcus assumed was surprise. Its mandibles clicked in rapid-fire communication with the others. "Arya, translation please," Marcus subvocalized into his calm. "The pack leader is expressing confusion about their scout's defeat," Arya replied. "He's asking how a tiny fur thing could overcome a trained warrior." Marcus grinned despite their desperate situation. "Tell him that's not a fur thing. That's Earth's finest example of weaponized lack of self-preservation instinct. I do not believe that will translate accurately, Arya responded dryly. The Zephyrian pack began their approach, spreading out in a classic pincer movement. Marcus had seen the tactic before. They'd surround their prey, then converge from all angles. It was devastatingly effective against normal opponents. Brutus wasn't normal. The honey badger studied the approaching aliens with the same intensity he'd once shown a beehive full of his favorite snack. Marcus had learned to recognize that particular expression. It meant Brutus had identified something that needed to be thoroughly destroyed and was working out the most efficient method. 8 of them, buddy? Marcus murmured, checking his rifle's charge. Think we can take them? Brutus chittered softly. A sound Marcus had learned meant either absolutely or I'm going to enjoy this. With honey badgers, the distinction was largely academic. The pack leader raised one of its 4 arms, and the hunting party began their final approach. These weren't desperate raiders or inexperienced pirates. These were professional apex predators who had honed their skills on a dozen worlds. They moved with synchronized precision, weapons trained, escape routes covered. Brutus disappeared. One moment he was sitting next to Marcus's barricade, the next he was simply gone, as if the laws of physics had taken a coffee break. Marcus had seen this trick before but still couldn't figure out how a 20-pound mammal could achieve what amounted to tactical invisibility. The Zephyrians paused, clearly confused by the sudden absence of their secondary target. Their leader chittered orders, and they resumed their advance more cautiously. The leftmost flanker never saw it coming. Brutus materialized behind the alien like a nightmare with claws, launching himself at the back of the Zephyrian's neck where the armor plates met. His teeth found the sweet spot with surgical precision, and the warrior went down thrashing. Before the pack could react, Brutus was already moving to his next target, flowing like liquid violence across the rocky terrain. The honey badger had apparently decided that the most efficient method of dealing with 8 predators was to systematically dismantle them in order of proximity. Marcus added his own contribution to the chaos, laying down covering fire that forced the remaining Zephyrians to seek cover. His pulse rifle bursts kept them pinned while Brutus conducted what could only be described as a masterclass in aggressive pest control. The second alien fell when Brutus somehow managed to get inside its guard and introduce his claws to several important organs. The third tried to retreat and discovered that honey badgers don't really acknowledge the concept of strategic withdrawal. Arya, are you recording this? Marcus asked, watching his partner systematically terrorize creatures that regularly gave Marine battalions nightmares. Every moment, Dr. Rodriguez. I suspect the xenobiology department will find this footage educational. The pack leader finally managed to get a clear shot at Brutus, raising its primary weapon as the honey badger finished with victim number 4. Marcus saw the angle, saw that he wouldn't be able to intervene in time, and felt his heart skip a beat. Brutus looked directly at the weapon, chittered something that sounded distinctly like laughter, and charged straight at it. The plasma bolt should have vaporized Brutus. Instead, the honey badger twisted in midair with impossible agility, the superheated energy beam passing close enough to singe his fur but missing his center mass by centimeters. He completed his leap and latched onto the pack leader's weapon arm, his weight and momentum throwing off the alien's aim. Marcus used the distraction to sprint to a better position, his tactical training finally catching up with the chaos. While Brutus kept the leader busy with an impromptu demonstration of mammalian tenacity, Marcus flanked the remaining 4 Zephyrians and opened fire. His pulse rifle bursts caught the first alien center mass, sending it spinning. The second managed to return fire, plasma bolts scoring the rocks near Marcus's head. But Brutus had apparently decided that the pack leader needed to share his attention. The honey badger bounded from his primary target to the shooter, covering 20 feet in what seemed like a single leap. How is he doing that? Marcus muttered, watching Brutus defy several laws of physics while systematically dismantling the universe's most feared predators. The honey badger moved like he was choreographing a deadly ballet, each motion flowing seamlessly into the next attack. The third Zephyrian tried to flank Marcus while he was distracted by Brutus's performance. It made it exactly 3 steps before discovering that the honey badger had peripheral vision that would make a fighter pilot jealous. Brutus somehow ricocheted off a rock formation and hit the flanker from an angle that should have been geometrically impossible. "Arya, I need a tactical assessment," Marcus called out, dropping the 4th alien with a precise headshot. "Remaining hostiles: pack leader and 1 warrior," the AI reported. "Dr. Rodriguez, I feel compelled to note that your companion's combat efficiency is unprecedented." The pack leader was learning firsthand why Earth mammals had a reputation for stubborn persistence. Brutus had taken a philosophical approach to the alien's 4-armed advantage, apparently deciding that if you can't match your opponent's number of limbs, you compensate by being absolutely everywhere at once. The Zephyrians' hunting shrieks had taken on a distinctly panicked quality. This was clearly not how apex predators expected their hunts to go. Its remaining warrior was backing toward the ridge, weapon trained on Brutus but obviously reluctant to fire with its leader in the potential line of fire. Marcus took the decision out of its hands with a pulse rifle burst that sent the last warrior tumbling down the slope. That left just the pack leader and 1 very determined honey badger. The Zephyrian finally managed to grab Brutus with 2 of its arms, lifting the honey badger away from its body in what was probably intended as a victory gesture. The alien's mandibles clicked in what Marcus assumed was triumphant communication. Brutus looked at his captor with the patient expression of someone who was about to educate a slow student, then demonstrated why honey badgers have been known to escape from maximum security enclosures designed by Earth's finest engineers. The pack leader's victory cries became something else entirely. 3 hours later, Marcus sat in the research station's medical bay, treating the various cuts and bruises he'd acquired during the fight. Brutus was curled up on the examination table next to him, calmly grooming his paws as if he hadn't just single-handedly redefined the galactic food chain. "Arya, what's the status on that distress beacon?" Marcus asked, running a dermal regenerator over a plasma burn on his forearm. "Colonial Marines are inbound ETA 4 hours, the AI replied. "However, I should inform you that our little engagement has attracted attention." Through the station's reinforced windows, Marcus could see lights moving in the darkness beyond the ridge. Lots of lights. More Zephyrians? Negative. These appear to be observers. Multiple species, maintaining what could be described as a respectful distance. Marcus looked down at Brutus, who had paused in his grooming to regard the distant lights with mild interest. "Think they're here to see you, buddy?" Brutus chittered softly and resumed his paw maintenance. In honey badger terms, this translated roughly to obviously, "But I'm busy right now." Over the next several hours, as Marcus waited for the Marines to arrive, he watched through his sensors as representatives from a dozen different species established what could only be described as an observation perimeter around the research station. Vorthan battle cruisers, Alcanian scout ships, even a few vessels from species he didn't recognize. None of them came closer than 10 kilometers. When the Colonial Marines finally arrived, their commanding officer, Colonel Sarah Martinez, found Marcus in the station's main lab, cataloging samples while Brutus investigated whether the automatic food dispenser could be convinced to provide snacks. "Dr. Rodriguez," Martinez said, surveying the scene outside. "Want to explain why half the sector's military forces are maintaining what looks suspiciously like a quarantine perimeter around this rock?" Marcus gestured to Brutus, who had successfully intimidated the dispenser into producing what appeared to be synthetic jerky. "Meet my research partner. Apparently, he's made quite an impression on the local wildlife." "That's a honey badger," Martinez said, recognition dawning in her voice. "My grandmother had stories about those things. Said they were what nightmares had nightmares about." "Turns out Grandma was right," Marcus replied. "Arya, show the Colonel our recent security footage." As the AI played back highlights of the Zephyrian encounter, Martinez's expression evolved from professional interest to amazement to something approaching awe. When the footage reached the part where Brutus had somehow convinced a 7-foot apex predator to experience genuine fear, she actually laughed. "Holy shit, Rodriguez. Do you have any idea what you've done? Made friends with an antisocial mammal? You've just introduced the galaxy to Earth's concept of aggressive diplomacy," Martinez said. The Zephyrians have been the sector's nightmare for 50 years. Nothing hunts them, nothing challenges them, nothing makes them back down. And your little friend just turned their pack leader into a cautionary tale. Through the lab's windows, they could see the distant ships maintaining their careful observation distance. As Marcus watched, a few more vessels arrived, adding to the growing collection of very respectfully distant observers. "Arya," Martinez called, "are you monitoring their communications?" "Yes, Colonel. The general consensus appears to be fascination. Multiple species are requesting information about the small Earth predator and its terrifying human companion. Apparently, the assumption is that anything capable of forming a partnership with that," Arya indicated Brutus, who was now attempting to establish dominance over a maintenance robot, "must be equally formidable." Colonel Martinez grinned. "Congratulations, Dr. Rodriguez. You and your friend just became the galaxy's newest urban legend. The human who fights alongside Earth's most fearless predator." Brutus, having successfully cowed the maintenance robot into submission, trotted over to Marcus and chittered expectantly. Marcus reached down to scratch behind the honey badger's ears, earning a satisfied rumble. "Hear that, buddy? We're famous." Brutus looked up at him with those dark, fearless eyes, then at the distant ships maintaining their respectful perimeter, then back at Marcus. His expression clearly conveyed a single message. So what? And in that moment, Marcus understood why honey badgers had become the stuff of legend on Earth, and why they were about to become the stuff of legend across the galaxy. It wasn't their size, their strength, or even their legendary tenacity. It was their complete and utter indifference to being impressed by anything the universe had to offer. As news of the encounter spread through hyperspace communications, a new phrase began circulating in a dozen different languages across human space and beyond. As fearless as a honey badger's human, Marcus couldn't decide whether to be proud or terrified of what they'd started. Brutus, of course, didn't give a damn either way.